Discover 5 spine-chilling true horror stories from night drives that expose eerie secrets unseen. In the small, sleepy town of Maplewood, where the night air feels thick with untold stories, a legend was born from late-night drives. Tales of ghostly figures moving just out of view, whispers that echoed down lonely roads, and lights dancing in the rear-view mirror. Jane, a 35-year-old diner waitress and single mother, carried these stories in her heart like shadows. Each night, after serving the last cup of coffee and closing the doors of the diner, she wrestled with her own past while cruising the winding backroads beneath a glowing moon. What she didn't know was that the darkness had other plans for her. As Jane drove, the silence enveloped her like a second skin, thick and suffocating. The rustling leaves sounded like secrets waiting to be spilled, and when she glanced at her rearview mirror, a flicker of light danced behind her. Her stomach knotted. "Just a trick of the light," she muttered, turning up the radio in hopes of dispelling the chill creeping down her spine. But as she navigated each curve, the whispers grew louder, teasing her with fragmented memories of her late husband, a man shrouded in mystery and fading recollections. Why did he leave her? With questions that intertwined with her very existence. Meanwhile, Mark, a local war veteran, felt the weight of his past with every turn on that same road. The shadows pressed against his windows, reminding him of battles fought and internal scars that echoed louder than any gunfire ever could. They tugged at him, dragging him closer into his own memories of horror, each mile replaying haunting images that refused to fade. Jane and Mark were not alone, though. The darkness was stirring, waiting for the moment of truth to unravel. Just a few blocks away, high school sweethearts Lisa and Alex found themselves driving into the night, their love tested by something they couldn't explain. Roadside apparitions whispered throughout the air as they clung to each other, unsure if they were being tested by fate, or if their bond was about to shatter under the weight of eerie encounters. "Did you see that?" Lisa gasped, her heart racing as the present became entwined with the past that threatened to spill over. As Jane drove deeper into Maplewood's embrace, she felt something was amiss. The library's librarian, on another restless night, discovered an old journal filled with chilling accounts of the town's cursed history. Each page released an aura of despair and mysteries that lingered, waiting to ensnare those who dared to uncover them. Their stories were tightly knit, a tapestry woven by loss and longing, threatening to pull them together just as it could tear them apart. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As Jane rounded another bend, a chilling howl pierced the night, reverberating through her car, making her heart skip a beat. It felt primal, hungry, even predatory. She couldn't shake the feeling that whatever had begun to awaken in Maplewood was calling to her. Was it connected to her husband, to the stories she'd heard? As she lifted her head, the moon shone through the trees, casting shadows that seemed to whisper her name. The darkness was closing in, and just as she prepared to reveal her deepest truth, it took hold of force more suffocating than any of her daily struggles. What lay ahead was uncertain, and her fate felt intertwined with the ghosts of Maplewood. The road stretched out before her like a dark ribbon, and Jane's grip on the wheel tightened. Every flicker in the rearview mirrored her unease, a shadow darting, an unexpected brightness that wasn't there a second ago. She glanced again, but all that greeted her was bleak emptiness. Her breath hitched, and the voice in her mind churned with unease. "Get a grip, Jane," she whispered, forcing the calm back into her racing heart. But the howl, its haunting melody, lingered like a curse, wrapping around her thoughts. Her husband's memory bubbled to the surface, a headline of pain and mystery that she'd buried deep. She wanted answers, but the very roads that once brought her solace now felt like a trap, binding her to secrets she never signed up for. Meanwhile, Mark sat alone in his dimly lit room, shadows draping over him like a cold embrace. His hands trembled as he absently rolled a bottle between his fingers. Those streets. They haunted him, the memories of his brothers lost and moments he could never reclaim. Each honk of a distant horn or rustle outside sent his heart racing. Perhaps tonight, he'd find the courage to confront what haunted him. Tonight, the whispers from the past beckoned him back to the road, where reality and memory entwined ominously. In a different part of town, Lisa and Alex held on to each other, the weight of the ghosts around them threatening to rupture their very essence. Did that just happen? Lisa was breathless, eyes wide, as they pulled off the main road and onto a secluded path. The night was alive with strange sounds, a cacophony of what felt like warnings. A chill skated down Alex's spine, and he could feel Lisa's heart thundering in sync with his own. "Whatever it is, we face it together," he insisted, but his voice wavered. Deep down, an unsettling sensation stirred. Was this the moment their love would either cement or shatter? As Jane pulled into a clearing, headlights catching glimmers of something impossibly still, a shocking sight made her stop. She leaped from her car, drawn to the source of whispers that grew louder. Her inhalation felt ragged. "Hello?" The emptiness echoed back, her voice almost swallowed by the gripping silence. Suddenly, the air shifted. A shadow, a figure emerged amidst the trees, and Jane's stomach lurched. No, this can't be happening. The air grew heavy with menace, as memories of her late husband filled her mind, abrupt and taunting. Could he be here? Mark, en route to face his nightmares, pulled over, having sensed that familiar tug, as if fate itself had woven their paths together. He glanced at his phone, battery nearly dead, and only lit by the glowing map, each point leading towards the terrifying unknown. What awaited him in Maplewood could break him or set him free, and Lisa's breath caught in her throat as Alex stole a glance in the rear-view mirror. "Did you see?" But the words froze on his lips. The car behind them pulsed with a strange light, an eerie presence that was almost magnetic. They were never meant to be alone this night. The darkness of Maplewood wasn't just a backdrop, it had a pulse. It throbbed with secrets waiting to spill out. Jane, Mark, and the couple were all caught in a web spun from fear, pain, and unveiled truths. Then, as if the ghost of Maplewood breathed life into every horror story, Jane felt a chilling touch on her shoulder. She turned slowly, dread coiling around her heart. There stood the figure, familiar yet distorted, a mirror of what could have been or what should have stayed buried. But before she could process, thunder rolled overhead, and the specter faded into the shadows. In that moment of uncertainty, Jane opened her mouth to scream, but it went unheard. The night grew thick with tension, leaving her with only one question: what truths were waiting to be uncovered in the darkness? A sudden rush of wind swept through the clearing, rustling the leaves wildly around Jane. Her heart pounded like a drum in her chest as she tried to shake off the vision. Was it truly her husband or just a trick of her mind? The cool night air turned icy against her skin, whispering ominous secrets. "Focus, Jane, focus," she murmured, backing away from the shadowy silhouettes with caution. She wanted to run, to dive back into her car and escape this nightmarish reality, but her feet felt cemented to the ground. The darkness seemed alive, pressing around her, urging her to stay. A faint sound echoed in the air, a laugh, or maybe a cry. It sent a shiver down her spine. Meanwhile, Mark drove deeper into Maplewood, feeling the weight of the night pressing against him. Every turn in the road sparked fleeting glimpses of his past, fragmented memories of laughter mixed with pain. He clenched the steering wheel as he wrestled with the ghosts that haunted him. Could he truly confront what lay ahead? Hadn't he been running long enough? A flicker of movement caught his eye, and he turned his head sharply. Was that a silhouette standing near the tree line? He squinted against the dim glow of his headlights. He could swear he recognized the figure. No, it couldn't be. The thought sent a bolt of terror through him. As he picked up speed, his heart raced with a mix of anticipation and dread. The map glowed, guiding him toward the nexus of his nightmares. Every turn brought him closer to a secret he couldn't ignore, a revelation buried deep beneath layers of fear and denial. Farther down the road, Alex and Lisa sat in their car, gripped by an intense silence. The pulsing light behind them grew brighter, casting eerie shadows within the vehicle. Lisa's pulse quickened. "What is that, Alex?" "I don't know, but we need to leave, now," he replied, feeling the hairs on his neck rise. The presence felt almost sentient, as if it reached out to them, beckoning to explore the unknown. His instincts screamed for him to drive away, but something deep inside hinted at a different path. As Jane gathered her courage to approach the tree line, she felt a strange pull toward the darkness. "What do you want from me?" she shouted into the void, and her voice echoed back, creating a dissonance that twisted in her gut. The night seemed to respond, and the laughter grew louder, reverberating around her. Suddenly, a blinding flash illuminated the clearing. Jane squinted, and as the light faded, she blinked. The figure was closer now, its features sharpening. Fear wrapped around her heart like a vice. "Mark!" she gasped, realizing too late that it wasn't just her husband's spirit she felt, it was something darker lying in wait. At that moment, Mark swerved sharply, having caught a glimpse of Jane in the distance. Confusion flooded through him. Was that her? Heart racing, he didn't think he just turned the wheel, directed by instinct, heading straight for the clearing. A sudden blast of wind caused the trees to shake violently, a cacophony of rustling leaves that drowned out all sound. The pulsating light from Alex and Lisa's car surged to life behind them, illuminating the night with a ghostly glow. "What's happening?" Lisa cried, panic bubbling inside her. "Stay calm," Alex replied, keeping his eyes on the rearview mirror, feeling the undeniable pull of the darkness that stretched ahead. Then, without warning, everything fell silent. The figures in the clearing held the same breath, caught in a stillness that felt unnaturally charged. Their paths converged here in Maplewood, entwined by the secrets they could no longer escape, and just like that, an unsettling voice cut through the silence, drawing everyone's attention, sparking fear and curiosity. "Are you ready to learn the truths you sought?" What awaited them all in the depths of the night? The air vibrated with tension as the question lingered in the night, curling around them like a mist. Jane's heart raced, and she felt the weight of the moment hang heavy in the silence. The shadows shifted, almost alive, watching her every move. "Who's there?" she shouted, trying to project strength despite her trembling voice. From the darkness, a figure stepped forward, a man, tall with an air of familiarity. Mark's heart lurched as he veered into the clearing, his headlights cutting through the gloom and revealing Jane's pale face. Relief mingled with dread as the recognition struck him. "Jane!" he yelled, but the moment felt precarious, as if uttering her name would shatter this delicate web they were caught in. Jane turned, desperation swimming in her eyes. "Mark!" Before she could finish, the voice echoed again, more insistent, "You can't hide from your truths." The urgency in the voice seemed to seep into the very soil beneath their feet. Mark stepped forward, the tension in the air tightening like a noose. "What truths?" he demanded, battling the instinct to flee from the heft of the shadows. "The ones that bind you. The pain you buried, the choices you've made. It's all here, all of it." The amplified sound felt like a physical blow, sending chills racing down Jane's spine. "No. I don't want it," she screamed, clutching her head as memories threatened to surface. Faces, places, decisions long buried flooded her mind, each one a razor pressed painfully against her memory. Behind them, Alex and Lisa exchanged frantic glances from their car. They heard the exchange, but the car's headlights flickered as the battery began to drain. An omen or a malfunction? Shaking, Lisa whispered, "Should we help?" "No. We need to stay back," Alex insisted, feeling as if each movement could disturb a hornet's nest. Suddenly, the trees around the clearing shifted, revealing more figures, each cloaked in darkness. They whispered among themselves, a chorus of regret and accusation that twisted through the air, intertwining with the night. "Your guilt brought us here," one shadow hissed, stepping forward. The spectre's eyes gleamed with an otherworldly light. "Confront your sins. Only then will you be free." Mark felt a sharp stab of fear. This isn't real. He shouted, almost to convince himself more than anyone else. His mind whirled. The memories, the loss, what he ran from his whole life was now manifesting in front of him. Jane squeezed her eyes shut, fighting like hell against the pull of those voices, but they echoed hauntingly, "You're all connected, stop it." She yelled, desperation rising, twisting her gut. She turned to Mark, sensing he was unraveling too. "We have to leave, we can't listen to them." But as she spoke, the ground beneath her feet shifted. The shadows moved closer, each one a reflection of their unresolved past. The air thickened with a sense of knowing, of inevitability. The night pulsed around them, waiting, watching as they stood frozen in a storm of choices that would determine their futures. Just as the darkness threatened to swallow them whole, Mark took a step forward, heart pounding and hands shaking, a decision crystallizing in his mind. "What do you want from us?" he demanded once more, his voice steady, piercing through the heavy veil of fear. The shadows merged together, forming a single blinding light blaring in the night, bathing the clearing in its ominous radiance. "Your truth could be your salvation, or your doom," the voice reverberated, echoing with a sense of finality, and with that, the light pulsed, and the ground trembled. "Choose wisely." The words rang out, echoing ominously as darkness loomed once more, binding them in fate's grasp. What would their truths reveal? Would they rise or fall in the wake of what they had yet to confront? The brightness enveloped them, almost blinding, and Jane felt her heart thundering in her chest. The shouts of the shadows faded into a distant echo, replaced by an unsettling calm. The light pulsed again, sending a shock through the ground beneath her. She steadied herself, desperately grasping for control as she turned to Mark, who stood rooted, his expression a mix of defiance and despair. "Mark. We can't let them in," she urged, her breath hitching in her throat. But he remained transfixed, staring into the light as if it were a window to something powerful. "What if they're right?" he whispered, his voice barely audible. "What if we need to face this?" "No!" Jane shouted, panic rising within her. She could feel the shadows pressing in, their whispers now a cacophony. "Don't listen to them. They want to drag us back. We can't go there." Suddenly, a figure stepped out of the blinding light, a woman with serene features but penetrating eyes that seemed to see through to Jane's very soul. "The past is not a prison, dear child. It is a teacher," she said, her voice soothing yet firm. "Embrace it. Only then can you move forward." "Embrace it?" Jane spat, her anger boiling over. "You want me to dive headfirst into my hell? What kind of nonsense is that?" The shadows rustled, and a different memory flickered before her, a failed relationship, a name she didn't want to pierce the veil of her mind. A bitter taste flooded her mouth. "Why would I want that?" "Because running does not solve anything," the woman replied gently. "It darkens your spirit, suffocates your growth. You're standing at a crossroads, Jane. It's time to choose." Mark turned, his eyes searching Jane's face. "She's right. Maybe we fought so hard to forget that we only made it worse." As these words hung thickly in the air, the ground quaked beneath them, a warning rumble that grabbed their attention. The shadows, emboldened by this revelation, surged forward. "Feel the weight of what you've hidden," they cried out, their voices rising like an anguished choir. The woman raised her hands, and the shadows faltered momentarily, revealing fleeting glimpses of the past, tender moments mixed with harrowing screams. A child's laughter dissolved into sobs. Each flash reverberated through Jane's chest, striking chords of pain and guilt. "Mark!" she cried out, the tears spilling over. "I can't do this." But Mark stepped closer to the light, determination etching his features. "Jane, we can't allow ourselves to be prisoners anymore." Before Jane could respond, their surroundings began to shift violently. The shadows grew restless, swirling like a storm around them. "Choose. Choose." Choose. Their chorus climbed into a frenetic pitch. Jane's mind raced as she felt the ground beneath her cracking, like an ice sheet ready to fracture. She locked eyes with Mark. Each moment stretched into eternity as they weighed their choices, the allure of the light against the darkness beckoning them back. Together? Mark asked softly, a question woven with vulnerability and strength. The woman in the light nodded, and Jane could see hope illuminating her features. Together she finally whispered, feeling the extraordinary weight of her words, a fragile yet fierce resolve surging within. At that instant, the shadows roared, their noise morphing into a horrifying wail as if they were being pulled apart. The ground opened beneath them, a dark abyss that threatened to swallow them whole. The flash of light surged again, blindingly bright. "Hold on!" Mark shouted, grasping Jane's hand. "Fight!" Suddenly, an overwhelming force jolted them, sending the shadows shrieking into the night. As the blinding light encased them, Jane felt herself being drawn toward the hidden truths she had long avoided. An overwhelming sense of freedom mixed with fear surged through her. A heavy darkness still lurked beyond the light, a reminder that the night was far from over and their past still held great power. What awaited them on the other side of this choice? Would it be redemption or new horrors lurking behind every corner? The brightness faded gradually, revealing a scene that felt strangely familiar yet deeply unsettling. They stood on a cracked, abandoned road, the sky a murky gray, thick with an oppressive silence that weighed heavily on their shoulders. Jane's breath quickened as her chest constricted. This was not the escape she had envisioned. "Where are we?" she whispered, scanning the horizon for any signs of hope. But there was nothing, only memories clawing at her thoughts, whispering truths she had long buried. "It feels like home," Mark said, his voice filled with dread. A shiver ran down Jane's spine. This place was no sanctuary, it felt like a graveyard for lost dreams. In the distance, a dilapidated house loomed, its windows shattered like broken promises. A chill cut through the air as they approached, and every step felt like a descent into a nightmare. The shadows from before seemed to linger just outside their periphery, taunting them with memories they wished to forget. She reached for Mark's arm, the weakness in her grip palpable. "We can't go in there. Whatever's inside will consume us." "But we have to face it," he insisted, the fight simmering in his voice. "It's our past. We can't outrun it hiding in the light." Against her better judgment, Jane nodded, and together they stepped onto the worn porch, its wooden boards creaking in protest under their weight. The door swung open, revealing a darkness that seemed alive, swirling in anticipation. "Just stay close," Jane warned, her voice quivering, and Mark nodded, though she could see the uncertainty flickering in his eyes. Inside, the air was thick with decay, the musty scent clinging to their skin. Dust motes danced in the slivers of light that filtered through the windows. As they moved deeper into the house, their feet disturbing the silence, a soft sound caught Jane's attention, a whisper, low and chilling, drifting through the air like smoke. "What was that?" she asked, feeling the hairs on the back of her neck stand on end. "I don't know," Mark replied, becoming even more rigid. "But I don't like it." Suddenly, the whispers escalated into a cacophony of voices, each vying for attention, pleading and mocking. "You think you can forget? You think you can walk away unscathed?" Jane staggered back, covering her ears as if to block them out, but the voices burrowed into her mind, each syllable heavier than the last. "Relive it. Relive it. Get out!" Mark shouted, pulling her toward a doorway draped in shadows. But the oppressive force held them back, encasing them in a suffocating grip. Together Jane gasped, remembering their earlier resolve, but the shadows swirled around them, replaying their worst fears. A flicker of her past caught her eye, her mother's tear-stained face, the final echo of a lost goodbye. "No!" she screamed, her heart racing. Bolt after bolt of pain shot through her, nearly paralyzing her. "I'm here, Jane!" Mark shouted. "We can't let them take us." And just like that, the room erupted into chaos. Furniture flew at them, shadows became monstrous shapes, and regret poured from the walls like ink, threatening to drown them. "Face it. Fight it," Mark cried. But Jane felt herself wavering. Could she withstand this storm of memories? Could any of them? The voices drowned her thoughts, the once faint whispers now a suffocating roar, cutting through her resolve. "Together!" She finally yelled through clenched teeth, her voice tremoring with fear and defiance. In that moment, the cacophony paused as if physically recoiling from her words. The shadows hesitated, the figures within them stalling in their advance, revealing moments that Jane never wished to see again. "Do you want this to end?" Mark's voice came through like a lifeline. "Then we face it. All of it." The shadows lurched forward, the pressure building again, but instead of backpedaling, Jane stepped forward, feeling anger pulse through her veins. She would not be a prisoner of her past any longer. What if, she hesitated, reality pressing down heavily. But before she could finish, the shadows surged. The darkness enveloped them completely, and just like that, they were gone. What awaited Jane and Mark in this swirling void? Would they uncover the truths within, or would the weight of their choices bury them in darkness once more? The void constricted around them, an inky blackness that felt both suffocating and strangely intoxicating. Jane clung to the memory of Mark's voice, his reassurance echoing in the silence, but the darkness thrummed with its own pulse, luring her deeper into despair. "Stay focused," she screamed, as fragments of family photographs and echoes of laughter dissolved into twisted screams. Each flash ignited a whirlwind of emotions: betrayal, guilt, loss. They were there, taunting her, dragging her down, but she couldn't give in. "Not now. Jane." Mark's voice cut through the darkness. "Can you see it? We need to find a way back. I can barely see anything," she cried, fighting against the chilling grip of their shared fears, but then, a faint glimmer emerged, just ahead. It flickered like a distant star, brimming with a light that felt too sacred for this tormented world. Jane resisted the urge to reach for it, afraid it might slip through her fingers like the memories they had tried to escape. "Mark," she called, urgency lacing her tone. "Do you see that?" "Yes." His voice brightened. "It's our chance. Let us go." They stumbled toward the light, pushing against the shadows that clawed at their heels, each step weighted with a fear of failure. As they approached, the whispers morphed into a low growl, fueled by frustration. "You cannot escape. You belong to us." Jane felt her heart thud painfully against her chest, pounding out a rhythm of desperation. "No. We're taking back our story." With renewed vigor, they propelled towards the light, the shadows swirling wildly around them, flickering like angry flames. The cacophony of memories merged into a single powerful roar, but this time, Jane pressed on, each heartbeat stealing her resolve. Suddenly, they burst into the open, light flooding their senses like a burst dam. They found themselves standing in a hallway lined with doors, each door a moment from their past sealed tight. Some glowed softly while others pulsed ominously, as if alive, waiting for their time to emerge. "This is it," Mark breathed, wide-eyed as he gazed at the doors. "We have to go through them. All of them. What if we can't handle it?" Jane asked, a tremor creeping into her voice. "What if it all gets worse?" "Then we fight together," he replied, gripping her hand. "We're not alone anymore. We take the strength from each other." They approached the first door, aged wood, splintering at the edges. Mark reached for the knob, the moment suspended in time. Memories surged at Jane like a tidal wave, threatening to pull her under. "It'll be okay," he assured her, but doubt dripped like poison into her veins. What awaited them behind this door? Mark turned the knob, and it creaked open, revealing a darkness that seemed different. It was thick, oppressive, humming with energy. "Let us face it," he urged, stepping inside, pulling her along in a motion of defiance. the moment they crossed the threshold, the world dissolved around them. They were back in the living room of the house, shadows shifting in the corners, but everything felt sharper, more vivid, as if amplified by their confronting spirits. "No!" A voice shrieked, a haunting echo of loss. Jane's heart seized. Familiar, yet twisted, it was the voice of her mother. Tears stung her eyes, memories flooding her, yet she couldn't let them drown her again. Mark stepped forward. "This isn't real. You're stronger than this." As the shadows leapt toward them, Jane summoned every ounce of courage. "You don't own me," she shouted, the words piercing through the chaos, and then, the ground beneath them shattered, sending them plummeting into another abyss, one that felt terrifyingly colder, darker. What awaited them at the bottom of this new void? Would they face their fears together once more or find themselves lost, swallowed by the very darkness they had sought to escape? They hit the ground hard, the impact knocking the breath from Jane's lungs. The cold swallowed her whole, each gasp freezing in her throat. Mark lay beside her, eyes wide, his breath coming in shallow bursts. Darkness encased them, but it felt different now, alive. Like a beast that had awakened and was hungry for them. "Jane!" Mark grunted, struggling to rise. "We need to move." He tugged at her, but she could barely process his words. The shadows whispered, wrapping around her like a suffocating cocoon, each murmur clawing at her sanity. Memories bubbled up, bright and excruciating: a birthday party where laughter had turned to tears, a fight that severed ties, a silence that echoed with regret. "Do you hear it?" she gasped, her voice trembling. "The past is trying to drag us under." Mark shouted, pulling her to her feet. "That's why we need to keep going." They staggered forward, hands linked, the cold seeping into their bones, each step a battle against both the ground and their minds. Shapes danced in the darkness, phantoms from their memories mocking their every move. A boy with a charming smile but cold eyes, a figure in the corner of her childhood home who had never quite felt right. "No!" Jane protested, shaking her head. "Not him. Not again." But the boy stepped closer, his grin tearing open old wounds. "You thought you could leave me behind?" he taunted, voice oozing with malice. Jane could feel Mark behind her, radiating strength. "This isn't real, Jane," he yelled, forcing her to sway back to him. "Face him. Remember what he really is. Just a shadow," she shouted, rallying against her fears. "You don't control me." As though struck by a bolt of electricity, the boy paused, his figure blurring at the edges. The shadows shrieked and writhed, their anger growing hotter. The darkness felt more like a storm, battering them with relentless, icy wind. "Let us break through. We can do this," Mark yelled, pushing ahead. Together, they moved deeper into the swirling darkness, the echoes of their past closing in around them. Each room they passed pulsed with energy, calling out to them, whispering seductions of comfort and familiar pain. Then, they reached a door, its surface glimmering with a light that felt both inviting and terrifying. Suddenly, the haunting silhouette of Jane's mother appeared again, her longing eyes filled with sadness. "Help me," Jane, the voice pleaded, breaking her heart anew. "No. This isn't reality." Jane screamed, her voice cracking. "You're not here. I will not be lost." The shadows rushed forward, trying to snatch her from Mark's grip. "Don't let go," he shouted, the might of his grip anchoring her. With a surge of will, they both slammed their shoulder against the door, pushing through the darkness with every ounce of strength left in them. One last surge, and they burst through, the light flooding over them. But what greeted them was not safety but a vast expanse. They stood on a precipice, high above a maddening spiral of shifting darkness. All around them, distorted versions of their past loomed, each twisted memory rearing back as if to swallow them whole. "There's nowhere to go," Jane gasped, fear gripping her heart. "Look!" Mark pointed to a path that appeared out of thin air, winding precariously along the edge. "Do we even trust this?" Jane's voice wavered. "We trust each other," he insisted, urgency dancing in his eyes, but as they hesitated, a chilling wind swept by, whispering insidious threats, reminding them of what they had lost, what they feared most. The voices of the past grew louder, drowning out everything, echoing their doubts. "Jump or remain lost," she murmured, staring into the darkness below. Taking a step forward, she asked, "What if we fall?" "If we fall together," Mark answered, resolute. The shadows gave their final, ravenous growl as Jane took Mark's hand firmly. Taking a deep breath, they both stepped off the ledge into the unknown. What awaited them in the abyss below? Would it be freedom or the darkest fears they'd ever faced? The answer lay just out of reach, and they could only hope they were strong enough to confront it together. Falling felt like an eternity. Time twisted around them, every second stretching into a scream, every heartbeat an echo of doubt. The ground approached with a terrifying clarity, but instead of panic, a sense of resolve surged through Jane. They were together. They understood their strength. As they plunged into the darkness, the world seemed to erupt in a cacophony of voices, shouting, wailing, demanding their attention. Jane squeezed Mark's hand tighter, desperate for reassurance. But with each passing moment, the whispers morphed, each one reflecting a different fear, a past they wished to bury. "Remember that day at the lake?" A voice taunted, cold and menacing. "You thought you could swim away from your mistakes." Crimson waves flooded her mind, her laughter turning to tears as she watched her younger self struggle. The sun-kissed memories twisted, cruelty dancing across them. "No. That doesn't define me," Jane shouted, defiance echoing in the void. She felt Mark's grip tighten, urging her on. The darkness grew heavy, pushing against them as they fell deeper, deeper into a hollow pit of anguish. She wasn't alone. Mark's presence was a beacon, guiding her through the murky memories dragging at her heels. Together they fought through the onslaught of chaotic visions. Suddenly, they crashed into an unseen surface, a jarring stop that sent tremors through her limbs. Blinking away disorientation, Jane looked around. They were encircled by a swirling mist that wrapped around them like a living entity. "Where are we?" Mark breathed, his eyes scanning their surroundings, wide and wild with uncertainty. "It's a maze," Jane whispered, recognizing the familiar dread pooling in her stomach. The memories of being trapped, of decisions that could never be taken back flooded her senses. A path formed before them, but it wasn't solitary. Shadows flickered just beyond the edges, figures moving silently, faces obscured and distorted. Some beckoned with outstretched arms, others recoiled, shrieking silent pleas. The feeling of being watched clawed at her skin. "What do we do?" Mark asked, tension radiating off him as he turned to face her. "We keep moving." Jane took a step forward, drawing strength from the shared fear. The path loomed ahead, twisting and turning like the sinewy roots of a tree, leading deeper into an unknown. With a nod, Mark joined her, their feet moving in unison. Each step ignited a flurry of memories, a fireball of regret, and it felt as if they were reliving each moment all over again. As they pressed on, ghostly hands reached for them, realities crashing together, holding tight to both their pasts. "Turn back." A voice called from the shadows. It sounded like Jane's own. "You'll never escape." "Shut up." Jane shouted back, fear fueling her fury. The trepidation knotted in her chest, but the anger was stronger, propelling her ahead. "I won't be trapped again." Suddenly, a colossal shadow loomed in front of them, blocking their way. It pulsated with dread, its presence suffocating. Mark faltered, his breathing rapid. "What is that?" "I don't know, but we can't stop now," Jane encouraged, feeling adrenaline fuse with desperation. The darkness twisted, and for a split moment, she saw it, a swirling mass of everything she had tried to forget. As they dug their heels in, the shadow lunged, threatening to engulf them. Jane shouted, "Together!" They charged, determination burning in their chests, the barriers of fear dissolving into raw energy. Would they shatter the darkness, or would it consume them in one sweeping moment of despair? As they neared the shadow, a blinding light erupted, a light that brought both promise and uncertainty. "Are you ready?" Mark asked, his voice trembling against the roar of the void. The light flickered like a candle, its warmth fighting against the encroaching chill. All could change in a heartbeat. "More than ever," Jane replied fiercely, focusing on the faint hope blooming within her. But before they could reach it, a chilling laugh echoing off the walls of their memories, shaking her to her core, reminding her of every moment of weakness. "Come back, Jane." The voice whispered, slinking through the light, warping the warmth into something sinister. Would they escape this final grip of fear, or would the daunting echoes from their past seal their fate forever? The answers were veiled, just as they always had been. And that is when shadows began to weave around them, pulling and twisting, drawing ever closer. Jane and Mark stood side by side, hearts racing, bodies trembling. The overwhelming darkness surged like a tidal wave, threatening to pull them under once more. But this time, they had a choice. They could either succumb to the weight of their past or fight through together, hand in hand. "Together," Jane whispered, finding the strength in Mark's unwavering gaze. The malevolent shadows coiled around them, trying to seep into their minds, whispering tauntingly, "You can never escape. Your truth will consume you." "No!" Mark shouted back, clutching Jane's hand tightly. "We are not defined by our past." With those words, they charged toward the swirling light ahead. As they did, the shadows recoiled, hissing in anger, their forms flickering like dying embers. The piercing laughter echoing in the dark retreated, scrambling to regain their hold. A brilliant luminescence greeted them as they broke through the shadows, isolating a realm where peace enveloped them. A calm washed over the turmoil, and for the first time, Jane felt clear-headed. It worked. She gasped, astonished. Yet, the calm didn't last. From the light emerged the woman they had encountered earlier, her presence steady and reassuring. "You have faced your fears," she declared, her voice resonating with warmth. "But the final truth awaits. Will you accept it?" Mark and Jane exchanged cautious glances, a mixture of hope and dread swirling within their hearts. They nodded in unison. Together, Jane affirmed, the air shimmered around them, forming a pathway that rose from the ground, leading them to a lush meadow, brilliant with colors they had almost forgotten existed beneath layers of pain. A single, ancient oak tree stood tall at the center, its branches stretching wide like welcoming arms. As they approached the tree, they felt a gentle breeze caressing their faces, transforming their fear into anticipation. "What now?" Mark asked, voice steady but uncertain. "Find your roots," the woman said, her eyes glinting with understanding. "To face the truth, you must first embrace what you've hidden." Jane stepped forward, her breath hitching, raising a trembling hand to touch the tree's bark. Instantly, a flood of memories crashed over her like a relentless wave, vivid and unyielding. Each moment ignited something deep within her: unexpected joy, grief, and love almost lost but now renewed. At that moment, Jane glimpsed her mother's smile, the warmth of her embrace, and the loss that still haunted her. Tears streamed down her face as she surrendered to the weight of regret. "I'm so sorry," she whispered, the pain releasing its firm grip on her spirit. Mark followed suit, placing his palm against the bark, his presence solid beside her. A swirling essence wrapped around both of them as they shared in each heartbeat, rippling memories intertwining from their separate pasts. Faces long forgotten resurfaced, bringing laughter and pain in equal measure. He saw his brothers, their faces igniting a blend of nostalgia and sorrow. "I should have held on tighter," he murmured, shaking as acceptance washed through him. In that moment, they realized the memories didn't define them, rather, they shaped who they had become. Breathless, they turned to face each other, hearts beating nearly in sync. "We can't let them rule us anymore," Jane whispered, a newfound determination igniting her spirit. The shadows, despite their earlier attempts, were diminished now, shriveling in the face of truth. They watched helplessly as the vibrant life of the meadow flourished. "This is your truth," the woman intoned, now more of a guardian than they realized. "Honor your past, and let it guide your future." Together, hand in hand, Jane and Mark embraced the world around them, the vibrant colors, the gentle breeze, the laughter lingering within. The connection they forged in the darkness enhanced the beauty that lay in the light. With one last, deep breath, Jane whispered, "We're ready." And with that, the shadows, once bound to their spirits, dissolved into the ether, disappearing like morning fog before the sun. The radiant glow illuminated their path forward, bringing with it hope and the promise of new beginnings. As they stepped away from the oak tree, Lisa and Alex appeared at the edge of the meadow, their expressions a mixture of bewilderment and relief. "Are you guys okay?" Lisa called, her face lighting up at the sight of her friends. Overjoyed, Jane and Mark pulled them both into a tight embrace. "We are. And so much more," Mark exclaimed, laughter bubbling up as the darkness faded away, replaced with a day that felt fresh, full of possibility. In that moment, they stood together, united against whatever the future held, undaunted by the whispers of the past. The weight had lifted, their truths were free, and the shadows no longer had power over their stories. They began to walk, laughter mingling with the fresh air, the world open and inviting. They realized that even in darkness, the light could always be found. But there was no mistaking that one truth remained: they had discovered strength they never knew resided within them, that together, they could face anything. Now it was time for a new journey, paths untold. They stepped forward, no longer afraid, hearts entwined with hope, and remember, every story needs a listener. You need to subscribe now. Don't miss the next exclusive stories that await you. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this shocking conclusion. Instantly share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to share. Real fans understand the importance of your support. Let's keep this community alive and thriving.